Welcome to the program, guys. Another college buddy here today to talk about his career. We have Tyler Conrad, a director, tour photographer, and videographer on the program today. Brother, thanks for making some time today. Appreciate it.
Dude, absolutely, man. It's been too long. I'm pumped.
Yeah. So based out in Nashville, right? Like you're
Yes,
not
sir.
too far away from Indy. But
No, not at all.
before we get into all the big things you're doing now, what kind of got you interested in media, wanting to do it?
Man, I got interested in video, I'd say in high school.
Yeah.
Another buddy of ours, Evan Wilkes, I went to high school with him. And man, we got into the course where, you do the announcements and stuff and you
Right.
produce them for the whole school. And so I got into editing kind of my senior year, editing those and like fun videos for the announcements. And so that kind of got me interested, but I still actually skewed more radio. And then it took, I think Megan Fee in college, which is another person that you would know.
Right.
She kind of convinced me to come over to the TV side of things and, double down on the media thing. Cause she's like, you're kind of good at this. You should like give it a shot. So went for it and didn't look back.
I remember we linked up at ICR 887 WICR. And then eventually, you kind of made the migration back over to TV. What would you say, having worked in both, do you have a preference? I mean, clearly you're working in video now, but do you have a greater love when you look back at it?
Oh, absolutely, man. I loved coming from radio. Like I grew up, my dad was on our high school radio station. He called football games and basketball games. And so that was always kind of instilled in me a little bit. That's like where we came from. We're a big sports family and stuff. So that I'll never kind of lose my love for that. But in terms of where, my talent lies, definitely more the TV side. I would probably need to drop my voice a few octaves to really have another shot at the radio gig. But I'll always have a love for radio, man. That's where I came from. Those are my roots. So,
and your high school wasn't too far away from UND. Was proximity kind of a reason why you chose that school of all places?
It was actually UND actually wasn't my first choice, ironically enough.
Okay.
I played tennis in high school, and I was gonna go play at Indiana Wesleyan, which is like in Marion, so it's a little further north. But very last second, I decided to try out for the Indiana Fever hip hop squad, and that's like the very last part of my senior year, and ended up making the finals. And I had about a week until I figured out if I made the team or not. And so I kind of had to, come to truth with myself of like, hey, if we make this, are we full sending to Indianapolis, or are we still, going with the plan to go play tennis up north? And so I said, if I make this, I'm going to go to Indianapolis. And my grandpa taught at UND for a long time, so I was familiar with the school, and so I'd already been accepted, and it was good kind of plan to have, I guess, for making that last minute decision. So
were you already committed, and did you have to like call the coach and have a conversation?
Yeah. So I'd verbally committed, but I had been for like the freshman day, the new recruit day and whatnot. I knew my roommate. We were pretty sure on where we were gonna live at. Shout out to Jeremy, poor guy. And then the day after I made it, so that Saturday, the coach texted me and he was like, "Hey man, pumped to have you. Let me know, what your next few weeks look like. Would love to come down to a signing at the school." And I was like, "Oh man,
here's
I
the
have
thing.
some news for you." And so he was pretty short with me in the response. He's like, "All right," and didn't really say much else. So,
have you talked to him since, or like that's just
I haven't, but I mean, I think he kind of got through it. They won a couple like league titles or division titles, so they did fine. I wasn't gonna make or break them, you know what I mean? But I did feel bad.
And we'll connect this back to all of your video work that you've done. But I remember the days that you would have to do a Fever game, and for anybody that's seen Hitch, I'm a guy that's got to stay in the dance pocket, like
this is home.
This is where you live, right here. Like
yes.
For anybody that would need like some basic suggestions, do you have any tips that you can share with us today?
Man, So I taught dance after that too for a good bit, and
Yeah.
it really, I like to know where people are coming from when they get into a dance class. So a lot of dudes, I start with athletics. I'm like, all right, you know how you dribble a basketball? Give me like a between the legs, like back and forth. It kind of gets their shoulders into it, gets them swaying.
Okay.
And then you kind of put a beat to that and you kind of build off that. So I think anything that you can kind of do naturally that's like physical, kind of start from there and then try to put a rhythm to it. I know it's going to feel kind of corny off the rip, but to kind of train yourself into not thinking it's like so much like dance moves and whatnot, and just moving your body how you know how to move it. It's kind of a good way to start.
Well, and see, I'm asking for me because, you know, having gone out on many a Thursday with me, I need a cane just like sober, and on flat ground I have difficult time balancing.
Hey, bro, you got a prop. What do you mean? You're ahead of the curve. What are you talking about?
I was gonna say the cane is a bonus, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely it is.
So,
you get to work that on 8 different ways. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Gold up all in my cane. That was always my suggestion. But to get back to you and your career, I remember at some point along the line you were hired at Emmis. Like that was your first big break. How did that all work out? And tell me how that kind of impacted academic things.
Sure. So I guess the short story would be, just like anybody else applying for a job, it was actually Emmis corporate looking for like a summer, video hire to kind of help with some internal stuff. And I applied on like Glassdoor or something. I don't remember what site it was. And they brought me in for an interview and I did okay, didn't screw it up. And so I worked for them for the summer between my sophomore and junior year. And I was probably in over my head, to be honest. Didn't quite know all what I was doing, but I guess I faked it pretty well. So after that, they had a videographer that was working for all 4 stations in the building. And she was kind of getting to the end of her time there. And she saw, hey, there's another video person in the building. Let's see if we can't just migrate some responsibility over there. And so when my summertime was up, she kind of left at the same time. And they needed some at least interim help. So I helped for probably about a semester, just as as a fill-in, and as they were hiring a full-time position. And I remember my boss, who ended up being my boss, Jordan, came out and asked me, she's like, hey, been interviewing a lot of people. Why didn't you apply for like the full-time? I was like, well, I said I needed a degree. I'm a I just started my junior year. Like, didn't think I fit there. She's like, I mean, you've done the job for 3 months. You should at least put in for it. I was like, that's a good point. So I applied for it and again, didn't screw it up. So ended up being there for about 2 years and just got to learn so much. It was it couldn't have been a more perfect first job for me.
And just to give people context, we're talking about 1070 The Fan, Hank FM, which is a country station here in Indianapolis, like big time corporate radio gig that you had to do video work for,
Right. And I married both my worlds too, which is cool.
Yeah. And I was gonna, and we'll touch on like, I think it's really amazing how media has evolved where radio stations aren't just strictly doing shows anymore. They're putting video content out on Instagram. Like you got to know a little bit of everything now, don't you?
100%. You're a media company now. You're not just a radio station or a TV station. Like you're a full-on media company. The viewers or the listeners are everywhere on all kinds of platforms, and you got to reach them on all those platforms, which can be dicing at times, but that's just kind of the reality of it now.
And we were preached it by Scott Eaker, our professor in radio for WICR. But how would you rank networking? Like as far as importance, how important is networking to the success of this business?
It's so important. It's the number one thing in media. Like no matter what part of media, whether you're in radio, like for your side of things, like you want to get good guests, you need to network pretty well, or if you're, in video and you're trying to get, either better jobs or work for someone specific, like just the connections other people have to people you'd never think of just blow your mind sometimes. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, networking, like, which goes along, I think, with like reputation. I think those two things are just huge in this business. Yeah, I can't overstate it enough, to be honest.
Well, and living in Nashville, there's certainly no shortage of live music, but
Sure.
who are some of the connections that you've made in Nashville, and who are some of the clients that you've worked with in this business so far?
Sure. I'd say the biggest of names. Going out with Tim McGraw here in a couple of weeks to do. He's doing Watershed. So I'm gonna go do the. I'll be on tour with him. I'm out with I leave with Miranda Lambert tomorrow to go shoot a couple of first shows. And I've shot with Dan and Shay, Casey Musgraves. I mean, Justin Bieber, Harry Styles. Like, I've had cameras in front of people I never thought I'd ever have cameras in front of. And that's literally, like you said, from networking and just, finding more good people, in your business and in your industry, and just showing them you're a good person too. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that just goes to show networking is crazy, man.
Well, and doing a good job for one artist will lead to the next one. Is it not true? I mean,
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. Yeah.
So
more true.
Yeah. And going back to kind of your upbringing and just getting into the industry, I mean, was there support from your support system, or were they like, no, don't go into entertainment, go practical, and something safe,
Yeah. It took a while for him to kind of fully come around to it. I started off at UND. I was a double major in communications and accounting because it was kind of the trade-off of like, okay, but I was a math guy growing up, loved math, and so like probably could have gone accounting, but man, the more I got into it, the less fun I had in life. And so they started to come around to it, especially once I got the job at Emmis. They're like, okay, like, he's already got a job. If, like, we're kind of okay, we're on board now. So but then I uprooted that and decided, hey, I'm gonna go be a freelancer in Nashville. That probably put them back on their heels another time. My parents, at least. But no, they've been, I mean, mad supportive and couldn't be more encouraging. I'm sure my mom would have loved for me to stay closer to home, but 4 hours away isn't too bad.
So when you work with a specific artist, are you under contract with them, or it's just you're an independent contractor and work by the show? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of the time, it's show by show. However, if you're out for like say a full tour, or you're doing a certain set of shows for them that are going to stretch over a long period of time, you might sign a longer term contract. But the only time I've really ever been on a longer term deal was with the first guy that I basically moved to town for, Devin Dawson. I toured with him for almost 2 years, probably right up till the pandemic. And I'll tour with him again once he gets kind of back out on the road. But yeah, it's most of the time it's show by show. It's a lot of, hey, are you free on Thursday? We're busting out for this weekend and we need a photographer. Like, which I love that. I love not knowing, what next Sunday is going to look like for me. I think that's a lot of people that would stress out. I think it's just so much fun and keeps you on your toes. So
yeah, and I've been trying to penetrate the podcasting thing. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of money involved, especially early on when you're trying to, like, that's one of the sacrifices, that you have to take. I guess my question to you would be, how would you define success?
Man, I always said for a long time, people would ask, especially, being in some kind of media, people would ask, like, what's your end goal? Like, do you want to, win an Oscar? Or, like, do you want to, get a movie premiere? Like, what is it for you? And I'd always said, man, I want to go and just continue to kind of hustle until I get to a spot where I'm like, man, I'm having a blast. I'm so happy in life. You know, money isn't something I'm worrying about now. Like, I'm just at a good spot and I could do this for forever. Once I get to there, I'm going to probably pump the brakes a little bit and see, you know, how far I can take that situation. So, man, once you get to a point, I think where, you know, you're just happy and you don't have to worry about too many things financially, I think you're right in the pocket, right?
Isn't that the problem with this world, man? Like, so much of it comes down to finances. And
for sure.
And plus, I mean, the thing that kills me, like yesterday, you had Jeff Bezos go out into space for 11 minutes, and it cost him $5.5 billion. You know, like, you know, and this isn't going to turn into a political rant for those of you that listen to the Noel Castler podcast, but it's like, it kind of gives you some context, doesn't it? Like,
for sure.
Let's just live a little simpler and try to pursue what we want to do, not fit a mold or fit a brand that Bezos is trying to fit, you know?
Yeah. We're not in the entertainment business. We're not chasing, you know, dollars. Like, that's not why we're here. We're here because, man, we could do this all day for free if someone would, you know, let us live off of it. You know what I mean? So, like, if you're entering this to make a bunch of money, like, probably not the best idea. But yeah, no, you're shooting for happiness in this business for sure.
Who would you say your influences are with videography? There's certainly plenty of influencers out there and people that put out their content.
For sure. Man, to start off, I mean, he's kind of the OG, for lack of a better term, of tour stuff, at least for a lot of current creators. Rory Kramer, he's actually from Indiana himself. He grew up around like the Evansville area, went to IU, went to Bloomington, and now, man, he was a big part of when the Chainsmokers broke. He toured with them and made a lot of their content, and now he's out on the road with Justin Bieber, making all of his content, and various other people in LA. So he's killing it, and he's been so transparent about, you know, living his life and how it, you know, has affected him, you know, mentally and socially and stuff like that. And so on more levels than just his work, it's been a super big influence on mine. And then I'd say currently, this dude just moved to town, actually. His name's Spencer Miller. He's worked with Roy as well. He's from Los Angeles. He's a different kind of creator. He does a lot of edits that kind of make you scratch your head in a good way. He does a lot of like 3D edits and makes photos just kind of come to life. And so Spencer Miller's been another big influence of mine, especially in the last couple of years. So I'd say those are two for sure. I'm sure there are plenty of others that I can't think of. I mean, I have so many homies in town too. Daniel Vorlay, Matt Pasker, so many people in town that, you know, they're my brothers that I still look to for inspiration. So you pull from anywhere on Instagram or wherever, right?
Well, I know that's specific to yours, but and we'll talk about it because I know he's one of the best influencers out there. A guy that I really like, and it's gonna be cliche, but Gary V. You know, like the dude documents everything. Like,
dude, don't get me started.
He's so good.
I love Gary. I attribute moving to Nashville like 50% Gary V. Honestly, I was working, you know, I went from Emmis to another agency in town. They're called Coforce, and they work a lot with motorsport, so IndyCar, rally car, a bunch of different things. Anyway, I was working for them, and, you know, I liked it. They're great people. I worked on a lot of fun stuff, but then, you know, I saw an opportunity to go to Nashville. I'd wanted to go to Nashville for a long time, and I saw a video from Gary V that rang true of, man, in your 20s, when you're 22 to 26 or whatever, like those mid 20s years, it's like those are the years you kind of full send it. Like that's when you go for it. You know, you can come back, you can get the corporate job, you can get the 9-to-5 that pays you the stable salary. He's like, most people have that in the bag. If you have that at 22, you can get that back at 30. Like, full send it in your 20s. Go see if you can make your dreams happen, kind of thing. And so I had a chance to go to Nashville. Devin gave me that chance, and man, Coforce was cool enough to let me chase that dream. And so, yeah, without Gary's words probably ringing in my head, I don't know if I would have had the gusto to actually make that move and just send it. But thank goodness I did. So, yeah, I couldn't speak highly enough about Gary Vee, man.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, so many times, and at some point he's like, you got to stop watching my videos and actually do it. That's the other half, because you get in the rotation of all of them. And again, we've said there's no shortage of live music in Nashville. Do you ever find yourself going out downtown and just trying to find young up and coming people that need media done for them? Like, I feel like that would be a great way to get clients, you know, it's just to hit the bars on Thursday.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong, actually. Yeah, there's a lot of places that'll just, you know, have a bunch of artists out that are looking for media. You just go down and bring your camera, snap a few, and DM to them on Instagram. Like, you're gonna find a lot of work and make a lot of connections and network and whatnot. I'd say when I first moved to town, I had about a week until I left for tour. And when I moved to town, that week was CMA Fest, which basically Nashville shuts down, and all of downtown from Nissan Stadium to Broadway to countless bars around Broadway all become stages for every country music artist in the world. And so it's crazy. I had about a week and I was like, man, you know, I'm going to go out on tour. I better get some reps in, you know, like, you know, I better make sure I'm, you know, my tools are sharpened and whatnot. So I went out and, you know, I was DMing people that I saw on set lists and, you know, being like, hey, you know, you don't got to pay me this week. Like, I'm just here anyway. Like, would love to just come out and, you know, shoot some stuff for you. And yeah, so I shot for Levi Hummon, who's a really good guy in town. He's always been a friend. And he gave me a shot in the early going to kind of, like I said, get my feet wet a little bit. And that was awesome. Like, that was just the reps I needed. So yeah, just going around and seeing who's playing where, it'll get you a lot further than you might think.
Well, and having been there for a while, you know, it's been a while since I've been there to Nashville. Mm-hmm. We drove through on our way to Florida, and it was like pouring down rain, you know, like horrible weather and it was the streets were crowded. Like, I couldn't believe how many people were still out. I mean, tell me what it's like to go out in Nashville and where you got to go.
Well, so there's two ways to do Nashville. If you're a tourist in Nashville, Broadway's probably your best spot, because that's where you just go. You just let it all go. Basically, it's crazy. Every bar is at capacity, and everyone's just there to kind of, you know, party their night away and probably go home in an Uber that they don't remember. You know what I'm saying? And so there's the one way to do it that way. If you live in Nashville, that's not normally where we end up going, unless we have, like, you know, like if I have my, you know, friend in town, or my sister came in town. We went to Broadway a couple weeks ago. But if you live in town, man, you're going to like Red Door. It's a bar that's a lot of like singer songwriters go to. You're going to like Whiskey Jam at Losers. You're going to man, just a lot of bars that are probably off Broadway is where you're gonna find yourself.
Cool.
They're gonna be a little more lax, a little more chill, you know, less like, you know, Chelsea from, you know, North Valparaiso losing you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a more quaint place.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a nice balance.
Yeah. Sure. Do you ever run into anybody famous? You ever like see somebody, you're like, oh, hey, there's that guy, you know, or that woman, you know? That ever happen?
I mean, it definitely happens a lot. I'm trying to think if I've had it. I had it happen once. And luckily I'm at the point I don't really get starstruck as much anymore. I mean, it takes a lot. And so I just moved to town, and some friends of mine from back home came through, you know, did Nashville for a weekend, and my sister was with them and whatnot. And we got, I think it was breakfast at a place called Nashville. And we sat down, got breakfast, and in walked Hunter Hayes with, you know, his family and whatnot. And my sister and her best friend just, like, I think melted in their seat. Like, it was just like, hey, what? Like, So
right.
it was funny, but I'd say that was probably the only time, yeah, that I ever saw, anybody just out and about kind of doing their thing. But no, it happens all the time. And that's one of the beauties about Nashville too, is it happens all the time. And it's usually pretty lax. Like no one, freaks out. No one like, like they're just a Nashvilleian man living their life. Like no one's, going up to them like forcing a selfie in their face all the time. I mean, they'll take pictures, but it's not like a mob where they can't even, get down the street, so, which is cool.
That's the craziest thing. Like when I talk with Noel each week about, the people that he meets in New York, he'll be like, yeah, Paul McCartney runs down my street all the time.
Yeah, see, that's different.
And I'm like, you gotta realize, no, I'm from the Midwest. We've given up on our lives. Like New York is not. New York's a whole different game. Like you can't just shrug at Paul McCartney.
Yeah, so. See, that's different. Paul McCartney walks down the. I'm getting starstruck on that one for sure.
But
that's different.
Having toured all the places that you did, and I worked in the NFL for a couple of seasons. I don't really get starstruck anymore. Do you? Is there anybody you would be starstruck with?
Not a ton. I mean, yes, there are for sure people that, like so I have this like category of like artists that reach a level where I don't even like consider them human anymore. They're just like, they are their own being, if that makes sense. So like, if like Beyonce walks into a room, or if, Taylor Swift walks into it, like you're not even, it's not even a human being. Like that's just, that's just Taylor Swift, or that's just Beyonce. So if any of the people in that kind of category walked in, I'd definitely probably be starstruck. And like, because I mean, they're also the kind of people like, how do you even start a conversation with Beyonce? Like what is your lead in? So like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no like, I like your shoes. You know what I mean? Like there's no lead in for that. So it definitely takes a good bit to give me. I'd say the last time I was starstruck was probably I got to work shoot behind the scenes for Dan and Shay and Justin Bieber's song 10,000 Hours on their music video. And so seeing Justin Bieber in the room was pretty like, whoa. Like,
what's he like behind the scenes, man? What's your read on
him? Man, he's a nice guy. He hustles. He's everywhere. Like his schedule is just so packed. He's so just being able to balance so much on a plate, especially after doing this for so long, is just beyond impressive. I mean, the dude came up, had like, I think like 4 hours. They got everything shot and what they needed, and then he had to dip and go somewhere else. And so like, man, just being able to show up and he can just turn it on. Like it's amazing. He might just be like stretching off camera, like trying to juice up, get ready. And then right as that camera comes on, you're like, there's the star. That's him. That's the guy. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
just having that switch, man. He's probably the first guy that I've seen have a switch like that of just like cameras rolling. I'm full on. I don't care how tired I am. Like we're here and we're working. You know what I mean? So which is really cool. So
which probably gives the rest of the people there energy too, just to see a guy like that at that level, turn it on. And you could probably, I would describe it athletically at least, or in a sports context, like you could tell when LeBron's locked in or when he's about ready to step on the court. It's probably the same thing with Justin.
Yep. No, absolutely. It's it's showing up, after a long day of interviews or after a long flight from Europe or whatever, shows up, gets on set, and figures out where he needs to be, what he needs to be doing, and once that camera's rolling, man, he's on. It's cool.
And I've talked about this with Noel too, that in your experience working with these performers that you do they always give fans the proper reception that they're looking for? I mean, that's kind of part of the job, is to have the energy for the fans and then, turn it off when you're not in front of them.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, because I think that's one place where Nashville kind of shines, in country music, especially. Like there are very few people in the country music genre that are just bad and annoying diva artists. Like there's just they don't exist. So in terms of fans, or in terms of making time for an interview or what have you, like, man, if they got time for it, like they're making it happen. I think uh because like Nashville's still like growing, you know. They haven't been around like LA has, you know, haven't been
Right.
top dog like LA has for so long. And so, man, like the more attention like they get and country music gets, like they're just so grateful and just, man, like they're also just normal people, and so they're just there to have a good time, just like any other fan is, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, man, they give fans as much opportunity as they can, for sure.
Did you do anything with the draft? The draft was the NFL draft was there.
Yeah.
This was it last year? When was it?
I think it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago.
Did
last year there was nothing. Nothing happened last year.
Right. No, yeah. Everything was on pause last year.
Yeah.
I feel like it's still 2019 sometimes. Sorry.
Sure.
But yeah, what was the NFL draft like in your experience?
Yeah. That was pretty cool. That was something I hadn't really ever experienced. I did shoot or help shoot one thing for the draft. Jake Owen played a set at Tootsie's downtown, a famous bar on Broadway, and did like a interview beforehand. He's a big sports guy, so we shot some footage, and they actually used that footage as part of like the draft intro, like
okay,
when they brought the show up or whatever each day. So that was pretty cool. That footage went on like ESPN and NFL Network and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. So yeah, that was probably the only thing though I helped, I guess, shoot for the draft. Shout out my buddy Matt Paskert. He brought me on. I was walking on the bar at Tootsie's over everybody's heads, and that was fun. So
I feel like, at least when I've heard myself on the air before, that just makes you feel good. It makes you feel like a badass when you see something that you do on TV. You're like, that's me,
Dude, it's the bomb. Like, yeah, whether it's ESPN or CMT or wherever it is, like, you get the screenshot from a homie and that's like that they shoot a text or like, hey, like this is you, right? Or like they see your name on something, like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yes, sir. Like, yeah, it's cool because like not everybody. This is probably one of the only jobs, man. Like entertainment is like everyone. If you do it well enough, everyone gets to see like your final product. You know what I'm saying?
No kidding. Yeah.
Like a lot of like corporate jobs or desk jobs, like you're behind the scenes, you're scheduling things out, and no one outside of your building really gets to see the awesome work you put in and what comes out of it. And that's one of the best parts of this job, is that you get to share pretty much everything you make, which is positive and negative at times, but when it's a good one, it's a lot of positive. So
yeah, well, and the weird thing too, I mean, and you kind of have to create a vacuum for this sort of thing, but the crazy thing about this business too is, like, as much as I support you and I think you're going to be doing great things, you're also competing against one another. There's support amongst each other, but has there ever been jealousy or resentment that you felt from other people in your time?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Especially like once you start, man, because everyone at the beginning, man, you're just looking for opportunities, right? You're just trying to get your foot in the door. You're just trying to get on somebody's radar or whatnot. And so, man, at the beginning, yeah, you have a lot of colleagues or a lot of people you've networked with, like you said, and you see them doing other stuff, and like you're sitting at home on a Friday night or a Saturday or whatnot, and they're out, busting their ass, going nuts, and it's great to see. But the little part of you is like, shoot, like what am I doing? And so, but then as you kind of keep going and grow in your craft and within your industry, you really start to realize, like, hey, you can only do one job at a time. Like there's no, there's 200 artists that need, a tour person, or there's, like I can't shoot them all. And so the more you build up your friends who are doing those gigs really well, like the better, like everything's going to be for you. You're going to feel better about it. Like, yeah, because there's no need for jealousy. You can do the job anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I'd say once you start maturing a little bit in what you do and realizing that jealousy is just not worth your time or energy, and just to focus on what you're doing, making sure that's still kick ass. Like, yeah, you start to figure things out for sure.
if someone wanted to get started, get going as a content creator, what would be your suggestion as far as equipment to use? I mean, Lord knows there's so many different options and programs, but I guess where would you start when it comes to purchasing equipment and building a skill set?
For sure. Man, I'd say, depending on what style of, content you want to do, if you want to do like tour stuff like I do, obviously you're probably gonna need some kind of, some kind of camera, right? And editing software and whatnot. But man, in terms of just trying to help people who want to create content, showcase themselves, getting really good at editing. That's really what sets anybody in this position apart, is the editor. You can get a pretty nice camera and, you can get a pretty good photo out of almost anything. And so being able to transfer that in editing and, give that some flavor, some style, that's what's really going to set you apart. And so, man, just getting really good at that is going to be, I think, the number one thing. But yeah, and then just keep, I think, looking for opportunities to, have shots at creating content, whether that's, hey, I saw you shot footage, from your event last Thursday. If you have anything you need edited, even if it's just, an interview like this and you want some clips from it or whatnot, just, the more like reps you can put into creating stuff, the better. I mentioned my first job at MS, why I loved it so much. I got to put in so many reps on so many different style pieces for content. Yeah. I mean, I think my first year, we did about 600 videos we put out in 1 year. Damn. Which is absurd. But it was so great for me, someone who's still figuring out how to do this. Like, I just got to get rep in after rep after rep and just understand software better, understand, editing and timing and shooting and, just feeling good about projects.
That's one kind of depressing thing about the industry for me, is that like 80% of the battle is just getting in the environment, getting in the door, dude. Because most people, if you give them the opportunity, are going to rise to the occasion, but it's doing the grunt work. And I was going to say, if you're out there and you're wanting to create content, I hope you do get the academic background of a college degree, because it's good to have a basis of knowledge. But with YouTube now and access to software, it's not necessary per se if you can't afford it. Maybe you have a different opinion.
Well, I was just going to say, to cut you off, I don't have a degree.
Did you end up graduating?
No, sir. I never graduated.
Okay, so we ended up going to school. I didn't know if you ended up walking or not. Okay.
No, sir. No, I did not. I went for 3 years and some change, and started working full time at MS. Was doing part time for a bit at UND, and then, man, just kind of got to the point of like, that's always kind of going to be there for me. I kind of want to. I'm learning. I felt like I was learning just as much on the job as I was being in class, and so I was like, that's kind of always going to be there. My credits are going to be there. I kind of want to attack this. And so I didn't sign up for the next couple semesters. Then I changed jobs to go work, like I said, in IndyCar. And so did that for a bit. Like I said, that was always going to kind of be there. And I wanted to, I was finally getting paid to do this stuff, instead of paying for it. And so, just kind of full sending it. And like you said, degree's great, but man, your portfolio and what you can actually bring, especially now as we continue evolving as a society, I think is just getting more and more valuable. So.
Yeah. Do you hope to finish it at some point? I mean, you're clearly at a level where you don't necessarily have to, but for the accomplishment purpose, I think I would personally.
Sure. I mean, one day I wouldn't. I'm definitely not against finishing it. That's probably the number one question my grandmother asks me every time I see her. Is like, you're close, right? I'm school. You're gonna go back and get it done? I'm like, love you, grandma. Like, but yeah, like I said, I'm not against it. It's just, getting back to the Gary Vee thing, in your mid-20s, fresh out of school or figuring out what you want to do. I'm just here to kind of keep full sending it and seeing what I can make out of my life for now. And, if I need to go back and finish my last like 30 hours or 20 hours, I'll figure that out and we'll make it happen. But
And just to kind of get an idea for what you're looking for, to get an idea of your talent, because I know you've got an eye for this sort of thing. When you're looking through the viewfinder, when's the right moment to capture something? What are you looking for?
It's a good question. I would say if you're on the road, there's never a wrong moment unless you're told it's the wrong moment.
Okay.
That's one thing I had to get a lot better at, to be honest, off the jump, was just roll on it. Just keep snapping. You know, a lot of the time, like when you're on the road, Devin can attest to this so much. There's so many moments where a moment will happen and you're like, oh, and then you hit the record button and then like no moment happens again for the next hour or something. You know what I mean? And so, man, just leave it rolling. Just keep it going. Like, you're gonna waste a lot of footage. You're gonna waste, a lot of things. But if you're rolling for an hour just to get that 10-second clip that'll live on for the next 20 years, worth it. But if you're only rolling for 5 minutes and you miss that 10-second clip because it happened 5 minutes ago, you're gonna regret it. So in terms of that, man, with the technology we have, with the hard drive space we have and whatnot, just keep rolling. Like, unless you're told to stop, just keep it going. Moments happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't control it, especially when you're just documenting. So.
And for the love of God, I've had this nightmare before. Have an extra battery and an extra card.
Oh, so, Lord. Absolutely.
Oh, my God.
I don't have my cards here. I think I have like 9 or 10 SD cards. Yes, sir. Never be out of shortage. Absolutely. That's the worst feeling, when you have to start going through and deleting photos that from something else that you're like, I need more space. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, brother. Where do you see yourself in the future? What's next?
Man, that's a good question. I started getting into directing a couple years ago once I moved into town, music videos and stuff. And I thought that was kind of where I wanted to, double down at and, be the next step. And I definitely enjoy it, but man, not having the opportunity to be on the road for the last year was just more just terrible than I thought it was going to be. And so right in the near future, I want to get out on tours as much as possible. And because I think that's going to continue to be the future of content, like just being there, like you said, Gary Vee style, documenting things, just being there for all the real content. That's what people want to see, right? And so doing as much as that as possible, being on the road and capturing stuff there, traveling. But in long term, I have no idea. I'll be honest. Long term, I have no idea. I'm just gonna kind of keep riding this out, and kind of see where it takes me. Keep networking, finding different things to try, things I like, things I don't like, and seeing where I end up. So 5 years, if I had to bet, I'm probably still on the road on some capacity. 10, 15 years down the road, I'll shoot you a text. I don't know.
We'll have you on the show in between that time.
Love it.
How can folks keep up with you and see what you're doing?
Yeah, man. Instagram's probably the best spot at Tyler J Conrad. And then on Twitter, same handle at Tyler J Conrad. Now that I'm back on the road, starting up a TikTok, gonna be the same handle as well. Just to show a little bit more behind the scenes and showcase that aspect. But yeah, Tyler J Conrad for pretty much all the socials that I can think of.
Awesome. To hear this again, check out jbkonair.com. It's one-stop shopping to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at jbkonair. It's my initials, jbkonair. And you can also check out the latest of what I'm doing with the Noel Kassler podcast. Until next time, folks, have a great day and a better tomorrow.